What's going on, everybody? Zachariah Canyon Enabled. So in my last speculation explored video where I talked about Chris and the BSAA, I touched on a potential second theory, and I wanted to wait till it was right. I wanted to flesh it out enough, and I think I dumped so much time into this, and it makes sense, at least to me. Again, it's this theory speculation, and it's just fun, but it's dots that somehow connect, and I'm making the connection with you first. So if you're into this kind of thing, this is for you. This is my theory on Umbrella, Miranda, Wesker, HCF connections. I mean, there's just so much here. So let's just get right into it, Zachariah King. The events that transpire within Resident Evil Village are said to be set in an Eastern European country, with most favoring Romania as the true location of the village itself. Factoring the currency used in the game is the actual currency used in Romania, on top of other facts like the name Dumitrescu is historically a famous Romanian name. Lady D's involvement in the game furthers this belief due to the fact that her being a vampire fits the classic trope of Transylvania, Romania's largest region, being the most commonly used home of vampires, werewolves, and many other pop culture classic creatures. So with that being accepted knowledge, I decided to go digging, to a story told in the RE universe many years ago. So again, let's take a trip. In 2007, Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles was released for the Nintendo Wii. The game was an on-rails light gun shooter that retold the stories of Resident Evil 0, Resident Evil 1, and Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, narrated by Wesker and played through the eyes of the main protagonist of each title. After completing the third scenario, a fourth scenario is then unlocked titled The End of Umbrella, chronicling Chris and Jill's journey through a chemical plant located in Russia, defeating a brand new BOW codenamed Talos and bringing an end to Umbrella for good. But that's not why we're here. A lesser-known piece of canon was a small two-part manga that was released in Shonen Champion magazine in Japan in the weeks leading up to the release of Umbrella Chronicles. The two-part manga was titled The Prelude to the Fall, and it revolved around the brand new events that led Chris and Jill up to their journeys through Russia into the chemical plant. The story begins as the two arrive at a village in the Caucasus region of Russia where they're attacked by infected villagers. Throughout the story, they stumble across a little girl that gives the two insights on what caused the outbreak in the village. She told the two of them that the villagers were attacked by what looked to be a werewolf, but nothing else of substance was provided by this character. The next interesting piece of information provided within the manga is once Wesker finally makes his presence known in the village, he proceeds to tell Chris and Jill that the village itself is cursed before attempting to retrieve documents left by Umbrella on their purpose in the area in the first place, only to see the safe containing these sensitive files exploding, sending Wesker flying back as the only proof of Umbrella's true intentions in Russia burn away in the aftermath. The manga continues to set up the plot to the End of Umbrella portion of the Umbrella Chronicles, which is a solid story, however that's completely irrelevant for this exploration. So that leads us here, with two key pieces of information combined with tons of fleshed out lore touched on in Resident Evil Village. In the late stages of the 8th entry in the mainline series, Chris Redfield stumbles upon a village now in ruins, as he and his Hound Wolf squad embark on the mission of killing Miranda and destroying the Megamycete. Entering a cave, it becomes apparent rather quickly that this is a secret hideout of Miranda's. Scanning through files left behind on tables next to studies on previous test subjects, Chris finds a lengthy letter to Miranda from Umbrella Pharmaceuticals co-founder and the cause of many of Chris's previous BOW encounters, Oswell E. Spencer. The letter goes on to praise Miranda for all of the knowledge she had passed along to him, including her knowledge of BOW molecular structure, as well as his intentions to travel to Africa to look into a new potential virus strain he called the progenitor virus, which would later go on to become the predecessor to several evolved virus strains leaked out across the entire planet at the hands of Umbrella. Further exploration of the cave, Chris finds a diary from Miranda herself written in letter form to her deceased daughter Eva. In the diary, Miranda mentions being approached by the Connections, a small group created by another of Umbrella's co-founders James Marcus's protege Brandon Bailey. The group had its hands in many proverbial schemes, most of which was the development and evolution of BOWs, or bioorganic weapons. Now we get to the fun part. The exchange of information between Miranda and the Connection occurred sometime before the year 2000. Then in the year 2000, the Connection took the information given by Miranda and moved to their research facility in Munich, where they collaborated with a group known as the HCF, a collection of highly trained paramilitary soldiers, creating the infamous mold along with the E001 model, better known as Evelyn. The most important fact about this is that the HCF was a military group of Umbrella's biggest rival known as the Organization, and has always been under the direct leadership of Wesker. There's never been any indication that Wesker was present during the development of the mold or Evelyn, but knowing what we know about Wesker, surely he was somehow involved with the entire development process. This then leads us back to the events in the Caucasus region of Russia, the site of the 2003 outbreak where Anna had claimed the village was attacked by a werewolf, the same place Wesker had made claims of being cursed. Following the story of the Lost and Nightmare DLC featured in Resident Evil 5, we know that Spencer was still alive during these events in Russia, being killed in 2006 at the hands of Wesker himself in his own mansion. So next is where we add a little speculation backed up by fact, and that will be done in the form of distance traveled. We know first of all that the initial development of the mole was completed in the research facility in Munich, Germany in 2000, and that the events of Village take place in or around Romania in 2021. We also know that the events in 2003 took place in the Caucasus region of Russia, which is the southernmost part of Russia. Now it's completely reasonable to assume that the fact that these three locations mentioned are all within close proximity, with the bulk of that distance being between Munich and Russia, still tallying just over 3,000 miles, with Romania being close to the center of both points meeting. And it's again absolutely realistic to believe that Miranda's information was potentially utilized in multiple locations. This would be backed up by several other pieces of evidence within the caves, such as photos of workers dressed head to toe in weather protective gear surrounded by mountains of snow. Now this isn't saying much, but considering these photos along with the letter of Spencer were set on a completely separate table from the rest of the notes, one would assume that these photos had something to do with Spencer. The same person responsible for the creation of Umbrella, who happened to build one of, if not their largest facility, nestled within the snow-covered mountains of Caucasus, Russia. Further on then, we factor in the attack that happened in Russia. The werewolf that preyed on the village's inhabitants, again very similar to the lichen outbreak seen in the village in Romania. These are the only two documented incidents in the entire Resident Evil universe to ever revolve around werewolves or lichen attacks, excluding a non-canon comic release in the late 90s, but since it's non-canon, it didn't actually happen. Then there's the information included in Wesker's extra report, which was a booklet included in the special edition of Umbrella Chronicles, but only in Japan. In this report, Wesker includes detailed information gathered after the attacks in the village, claiming that the predator in question was Almas, a being of Mongolian and Caucasus folklore. Described as a beast that has a flat-like human face, walks on two legs, that its body is covered with thick black fur, and that it has supernatural strength. Every bit of this description sounds to an exact T like a being in Romanian folklore, and a bloodline of fantastical beasts featured in Resident Evil Village known as Urias. Both are massive in stature, walking on two legs, with hairy human-like bodies and brute strength. Plenty of questions can be formed by this comparison alone. Could the Almas and the Urias be related? It's unlikely these are the exact same creature, but considering both Ethan Winters and Chris Redfield had battled two separate brothers of the Urias family, it's reasonable to believe that there could still be more. And an interesting side note, when researching the Almas on Wikipedia, there was a redirection tab at the top of the page that takes you to a page regarding Romania, a location that's never been associated with the Almas itself, and again, the setting of Resident Evil Village. So are these two related in any way? The Almas and the Urias, Romania and Caucasus, Umbrella and the connection. Why would Spencer decide to build his chemical plant in Russia that close to where he left Miranda in Romania years before? Especially considering Africa, where he had made advancements in the evolution of the progenitor virus, was much further away. Then there's Wesker. Why aren't there any records of his involvement with the HCF after his departure from Umbrella in the Rockford Island incident in 1998? What was contained in those documents he failed to retrieve from the booby-trapped safe in Caucasus? And why would he seemingly go out of his way to tell Chris and Jill that that village in Caucasus was cursed? Even more questions I hope we can uncover the answers to someday, and with the much speculation revolving around the small chance of Wesker still being alive, I hope that day comes sooner than later. That's it. So, I mean, you can see how much is there. There's still much more to explore with Urias and the Almas, the folklore between Romania and the Caucasus region, the distance between the three, Miranda being the center, and spreading out to Munich with the connections, and out to Caucasus with seemingly Spencer. It has, that makes sense. He would have had to have some sort of knowledge of hers before being killed by Wesker, which his mansion was never directly identified, but it was in a European country again. Just throwing it out there, man. It's just fun to do these kind of things. These are answers that, we may get. They may not even be accurate, you know what I mean? So they're just fun to do. So I don't mind doing it. It just keeps the brain working. It's just make creative content in a way that works your mind, you know what I mean? Like it's all real, researched lore, factual stuff. That's what I'm here to do. I'm here to challenge you to think. in a way that's more Hideo Kojima than Capcom is known for and Resident Evil is known for. It's real outside the box, and it's tying the circle back together in a way that we had never seen coming. Is Wesker still alive? So many questions. Hopefully we'll get the answers to someday. But that's all I've got for this one. So check out my other videos, the Chris Redfield BSAA Theory video, my top 15 Resident Evil tracks videos, my walkthroughs and playthroughs, and every other bit of shenanigans on the channel. Check it all out. I thank everybody for the growth of the channel, and I'm only going to keep pushing more. And without you, I can't do that. So thank you guys so much. That's all. Like, subscribe, comment, or don't, whatever. Thank you guys for watching. Zachariah Kane enabled. Take care.